Hello, everybody. Okay, just wanted to make sure everything was working. So sorry. Okay. Um, so today I want to talk a little bit about I want to doing a Mental Health Monday. I know it's been a minute since we've done Mental Health Monday, and I'm very sorry about that. It's been a lot going on. Um, but today's Mental Health Monday I feel is very, very important. So I don't know how many of you have watched my different Mental Health Mondays, but I did a Mental Health Monday back in October. Yeah, it was October. You have to excuse me, my voice isn't the best. I was at a convention this weekend, which is very relevant to Mental Health Monday today. So I was at a convention. So yeah, anyway, back to October. What I wanted to talk today about is panic attacks. And this is very important because it directly was something that had a direct effect on me this weekend, and I want to help other people if I can with this situation, any way possible, even if it's just brain awareness or something. Um, and especially since back in October, I did talk about dealing with anxiety at big events like conventions. And I'm probably going to focus a little bit more on conventions because that's what this is more about, because this is what happened. It was something that happened at a convention this past weekend. But right before TwitchCon, back in October, I talked about, trying to deal with anxiety at conventions, knowing your triggers and stuff. And I mentioned something about how conventions tend to have resources because all the conventions that I had been to at that point in time had resources for people with anxiety and disabilities and stuff like that. Any kind of health conditions that need some kind of help or attention. Um, this past weekend, I discovered that not all conventions have this in place. So I feel that it is my responsibility to talk about this because I really thought that that was something that was kind of a convention-wide thing. So at TwitchCon, they have quiet zones. And same thing with Comic Con. Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con is wonderful. They do a lot of different things. They have an entire section dedicated. Now it's called disability services, but the thing is, it's about helping with any kind of health condition that can become, problematic during your time at the convention. So, if you have problems standing in line, and whether that's you're having trouble standing in line because of physical mobility, or if you're having trouble standing in line because you have such severe anxiety, you can't handle it, they have options for you, and they do try really hard to accommodate people. Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con also has an entire ballroom. Now, granted, it's not directly in the convention. You have to go over to the hotel next to the convention. But it's not that far a walk. It's really not any further than walking like an entire letter, like going from really B to C or anything like that. But it is outside the convention. It's at the Marriott. It's at the hotel that's right there. So it's really not far at all. But they have an entire ballroom that's for quiet space. It's for nothing but it's a quiet ballroom. It's calm. It's got, darker lighting and stuff. The entire point of it is for people who have anxiety to be able to have a safe for anybody, anybody who needs that at all. Doesn't matter if it's for anxiety or if it's for anything whatsoever, if you're being overstimulated, anything whatsoever. If you need a break, if you need to be able to get away, because conventions get very chaotic. There's a lot of people. There's a lot going on. So there's a ballroom, a whole ballroom dedicated to a safe, calm space where you can just relax and reset and calm down, and there's not a whole lot going on. There's people there that if you need some kind of assistance, they're there to help as much as they can. So I thought other conventions were like this because conventions I had gone to by that point in time in October had some kind of accommodations, had some kind of setup because like I said, conventions are very chaotic. They're very fun. I love conventions, but they are very chaotic. There is a lot of people. There's a lot of different people, and it's always unpredictable. No matter how much you try to plan things, and yeah, there's things that you can kind of expect are going to go this way or that way, but you're talking about, thousands of people. And of course, the number varies depending on the convention of how many people there are, but you're talking about so many different people of all kinds of different types, all over, different areas of the at San Diego Comic Con, all over the world. But you have all these different types of people with all these different types of situations and behaviors and everything. And my experience, most people I've talked to at conventions have been really cool. I've made actually some really amazing, I I consider my convention family. So I've made some really amazing, really cool friends. Even this weekend I did. Um, but the point is there is a lot of unknown variables because not everybody, just like anywhere else, not everybody is cool and, there just for fun. There are people who are not there with the best intentions because, they're there to just try to be scalpers. And I mean, no, that's what you do. I'm not trying to say anything negative towards you, but some I've experienced where some scalpers have that, like, one actually hit my mom one time at Comic-Con because they were too worried about their trying to get through the crowd and get to their next thing, and they punched her in the in the face to get her out of the way. So, some pretty bad shit does happen sometimes, but it's not always like that. But the point is, it can be. It's unpredictable. When you're talking about that many people, of all different types of people, it's unpredictable. And of course, even people who, I know how sometimes how I'll react or behave during conventions is not necessarily the same as an everyday because you just, you're tired. Usually, most time conventions, you've not eaten enough, you've not slept enough, you've been walking around, standing in lines all day long. It's chaotic, it's a mess. I know it doesn't sound fun, but I still love it. Point is, it's a lot. It is a lot though. Um, and so I feel that it is something important to have because just because you have issues where you get overstimulated or you have issues, you have anxiety, or anything like that, just because you have problems with crowds or you get overwhelmed or something like that, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy these things. You should be able to enjoy these things. And like I said, most of the conventions I had been to up until this point had accommodations for things like that. Now, this past weekend, I was at, I don't know if it's called Creep IECon or CreepyCon. I'm not sure. I've heard it said both ways. It is written out as Creep period I period E um period con. It was in Ontario, California. Overall, I had a really good experience. Um, but Sunday, yesterday, was I did have a very serious experience, and it's something that I really want to talk about because it's something that I feel is important for a lot of different people to hear. So, people don't understand. Let's get a little bit into panic attacks first before I explain what happened. Um Panic attacks are cuz there's a differentiation that people say of anxiety attacks versus panic attacks because anxiety attacks kind of build. You can kind of feel where your anxiety is increasing. Panic attacks are immediate. They're just that you have no control over them. They're just there because the whole point about a panic attack is it's kind of the whole idea. It's kind of like the whole deer in headlights type of thing. Um, Essentially, your brain is registering that there is danger, something that is severely, like, life threatening danger. Even if it's not, your brain is registering that there is significant danger, and so it causes panic, just like, a deer in the headlights. When a deer sees headlights and freezes and panics and just stares because their life is in danger, because a car could come hit them. So it kind of the same idea, if that helps give a little bit of, if you don't quite understand. It's an immediate response. It just happens. Now, there are, for, and panic attacks can happen to anybody. You don't have to have anxiety. They don't happen to just people with anxiety. They can happen to anybody whatsoever. Um, but they're just immediate onset. They usually don't last long, and they vary in how they and what happens. But they're immediate. It's because the brain is registering there is danger, significant danger, and so there's panic. Um, so completely unpredictable. Unpredictable when it's going to happen. There are things that you can find that are, triggers sometimes. I know some of my triggers for panic attacks, and so I do try to minimize the possibility of trying to have one based off of, trying to make sure I think about um, making sure any triggers, trying to prevent any triggers from being on set. But there's times that you don't know your trigger. And there's times that maybe something happens and it triggers something that you don't know. They're very, very unpredictable. Ultimately, it just comes down to the brain is registering danger. So you're in complete fight or flight response. And that's the thing. You are in fight or flight response, which means the whole idea about fight or flight is that you're either, you know, your brain is registering that you're in danger, and so you're either preparing to fight or you're preparing to flee. So that means that these panic attacks can manifest in different ways. So, for example, and Llama Mama gives me permission to talk about it. Um, a lot of times when Llama Mama has panic attacks, more, they tend to go more rage. Um, so so her brain, when she ends up in that fight or flight response, she is ready to fight, but she's having a panic attack. She's still having one. Uh, I know most people have this misconception about panic attacks, that panic attacks is you hyperventilating and, passing out and stuff like that. And yes, that can happen. You know, typically increased heart rate is a very common thing. But you don't have to hyperventilate. You don't have to have, sometimes you have troubles breathing, sometimes you don't. It varies. You have no control. So it is just your brain is outputting however it feels that it needs to survive the situation. So they can look very different. So for anybody who's never had a panic attack or who has panic attacks and maybe didn't realize, keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind, that not every panic attack is what society has told us, which is you hyperventilate and then you black out and then all of this. That can't happen. It very much can happen. But it can, for me, like, there's been times I've had panic attacks that have happened like that. There's been other times that I just end up it kind of looks like I have a meltdown, basically, where I just end up crying and just losing it. There's times that, like, if there's certain especially if there's a certain trigger that's going on, I'll just start repeating myself, and if I'm not being heard, I'll just get louder, and that's what happened yesterday. Um, so it varies. I have had more than my fair share of panic attacks. Um, and you can't control them. Just me. It's not fun, and that's what's so frustrating for people to understand sometimes, is they think that maybe some people think you're just trying to just be dramatic and throw a fit. That's not it. You can't control it. Trust me. Um, it's not really what I want to necessarily be happening. I would rather that not happen, but they manifest in different ways, and there's different triggers. So let me explain what happened yesterday. Yesterday, so Llama Mama and I went to CreepyCon. I'm gonna call it CreepyCon. I don't know if it's CreepIECon or CreepyCon. I don't know, but we're gonna go with CreepyCon. So, um, we were at CreepyCon in Ontario, California, and we went for the weekend. One of the reasons why I wanted to go was, um, Brad Dourif was there for signings and pictures and stuff like that. Now, if you guys don't know who he is, you might know him by a couple different more iconic things. One is he's the voice of Chucky. So he's the one at the very beginning of Child's Play, who's Charles Lee Ray, and then he's done the voice of Chucky this whole time. So he is the voice of Chucky. He's also another one that a lot of people might know him from is he's done a lot of different stuff, but the two more iconic roles I can think of is for those of you who have watched Lord of the Rings, he is Grima Wormtongue. He's the one who the very slimy kind of guy that ends up poisoning King Theoden. It's in the second one, the Two Towers. So he's Grima Wormtongue. That's who he is. That's some of his roles. He's done a lot of other stuff. He's super awesome, great guy, but he like never makes appearances on the West Coast. He pretty much all of his stuff is on the East Coast, frequently like in Florida and stuff like that. So for him to, and they even advertised, the convention even advertised, come see Brad, he's making a very rare West Coast appearance, blah blah blah. And then they ended up actually getting his daughter Fiona, who she did a couple of the Chucky movies. She played Nika. And then Billy Boyd, which some of you know Billy Boyd as Pippin in Lord of the Rings. He's also Glenn/Glenda, the child of Chucky and Tiffany, from from Seed of Chucky. He does the voice of that. And then Alex Vincent, and he is Andy. He is the original kid that plays Andy. He also plays Andy in the later movies as an adult. Like he plays little Andy and he plays Andy as an adult. They had a different kid for like the weird um sorry, my mom was on the phone. I'm a little worried about her. Uh so we don't I might have to get off of here. All right. I'll keep going if I have to get off here abruptly. I'm very sorry. There's some stuff going on. So it was the first time that all of them were going to be at a convention on the West Coast. Very big deal. Okay, cool. Very big deal. Very exciting. Very cool. Um, they advertised this and they really hyped it up and everything. So I believe it was the most tickets that this convention had ever sold. Really cool. I didn't realize how unprepared this convention was. And this is something I actually do plan to, because we actually ended up running into the showrunner and he said to write an email. So we're going to be writing an email. There was a lot of things that we found were problematic, but we're gonna we're gonna stick with the whole issue that I had with a panic attack. So yesterday, because for those of you who don't know, it was Llama Mama and I who went. And she's in a scooter and ECV when she goes to places that have a lot of walking because she has tendinosis in both her ankles. So her ankles will buckle and roll and she'll fall down. So she can't walk for very long she has to have sometimes she can walk, but when you're talking about all day at a convention like that, she can't do it. She never knows when her ankle's just gonna buckle and she'll fall. So she's in a scooter. Now, her scooter's pretty big, and that's just what she was needed for her for best comfort and everything. Um, but it's not so the thing because of that is it's not necessarily the most easiest thing to try to maneuver. Um Okay. Um, so, uh, anyway, um, so a lot of times because I've been able to luckily build up my strength, um, I usually can stand in line. I'm pretty good with that. But when it's just me and her, a lot of times she'll go off to the side and then meet at the end. Now, this is true of most places. We do that at Disneyland sometimes and stuff like that because it's too hard for her to try to maneuver through queues, especially once that snake, like really tight and everything. It's too hard. So I'll be the one who goes through the line and then she joins me when she can. Well, there are rare occasions where I that doesn't necessarily, because and that's true of a lot of things. If somebody can't stand in line, then what they do is they have somebody, like, one, they make sure one of the people in the party can do it, and they do that. But there are rare occasions, there are unique occasions where you don't have that, because the thing is, while I'm able to stand in line, I have severe anxiety. Now, for the most part, I am able to keep it pretty controlled. But yesterday, what happened was, because um since Brad makes such rare appearances on the West Coast, like pretty much never comes to the West Coast, his line was extremely crazy busy. We had went every day to try to go get it. Now, I had gotten a return time on Saturday to go see him on at 3 o'clock, and at the end of the convention at 6 o'clock, they were just finally starting to take 3 o'clocks. Well, the guy was asking me, like, the guy who was doing the ticket and stuff. He asked me if I was gonna be there next day, if I please wouldn't mind going coming back at noon on Sunday, because there was people who had 3 o'clocks that didn't have Sunday admissions. So I was like, you know what, I'll be nice, I'll be fair, that's fine, I'll come back. Now, mind you, this Brad is not a young man. He's in his 70s, so he's not young. Um, and he was pretty much staying, he like apparently he had stayed past the convention hours a couple times. So by the time Sunday hit, he was getting pretty exhausted because he had to do professional photo ops and then come back to his table and sign, and then of course you had people who had him you wouldn't have moved. I mean, it just, I was trying to do something nice and I kind of got screwed for it. Besides the point, the more important point of this story is I got in line. I was able to get into the line on Sunday. And it was kind of brutal because um when they when I was able to get into the queue, when they were allowing the 12 o'clocks, and which was actually like more like 12:30, 1 o'clock, probably more about 1 o'clock. Um, when they were allowing those people in, he wasn't there at the table because he had professional pictures he had to take, and then he was taking a lunch break. And so they really needed to figure out a better way to handle this, because they didn't have any kind of um they didn't consider the fact that, now there was another Fiona, his daughter's line, the person who was running, like the person who was help running her table, had a really great setup of, she tried to help accommodate people who needed to walk away from line because to take care of themselves, because she was like, no, you need to take care of yourself too. um so that was really great, but this was not, this was something that was done by her, um the people that were helping run her table. So he was gone for at least a good 2 hours or so. So now, mind you, all of these people are in line, and we were told that if we left the line, we would lose our chance to be in the line again. So if you needed to eat, you needed to use the restroom, you needed to do anything like that, and you left, you were screwed. So first of all, that was not cool, because they can go take a break and that's fine. And I understand that's pretty intense to, sit there and sign stuff all day long, to be hunched over and, constantly. I'm sure that's not fun on the hand and all that stuff. But um everybody has needs, we all have, we have to use the restroom, we have to stay hydrated, we have to, and of course, when you're trying to get into a line like that, you just rush over there. You don't think about making sure you're all set up for the line. You don't go, okay, let me make sure I have enough snacks, let me make sure I go use the restroom real quick. You just get in there when you can. So you don't think about your needs until after it's a little too late. So luckily, we had we had talked to them before I had even gotten to the line, or like right when before I'd gotten into the main queue. We had talked to them and they said it was completely fine for her to sit off to the side and for me to be in the line. And then she would join me right when I got up there because it was too hard for the zigzag. Now luckily this was the case. Hey Fluffy, how you doing? Luckily her being outside of the line helped because I ended up getting really dehydrated and I hadn't eaten either. So I was starting to feel really woozy. So she was able to go get me a water and like a little snack and everything. Um we're doing Mental Health Monday today, Fluffy, talking about experience I had yesterday at a convention that I feel is really important to share for Mental Health Monday. So I was very lucky that she was able to go get me a little snack and everything. And I saw a couple people they were lucky that they had somebody who was able to bring them a little bit of food or whatever. But one, that's something that they really needed to figure out better because that's not okay. Okay. That's not okay that you get punished if you need to go use the restroom. Um, or you really need to eat. Because, I mean, I have minor hypoglycemia. For the most part, it's pretty okay, but the point is, I do have it. So, when I'm standing there for a couple hours and haven't eaten or drinking, it starts to become a problem, and that's what happened. Luckily, like I said, Mama was able to get that for me. Now, she had all the money and stuff like that because I kind of just, once they brought the people in, they kind of just, it was a very quick thing, so I wasn't able to grab the stuff. And the idea was that she was supposed to meet me at the end, like right when I got up to the beginning, right at the right when I got up to the table for it. And this was already agreed upon. Then suddenly, when he had gotten back, they started yelling at it because she asked if she could sit off to a certain side, and she got yelled at about being over there, even though she was like, "Hey, no, they told me I could stay over here." And then the guy like got real nasty with her, and it was actually I think she said it was actually somebody in security was like, "You need to fucking move or leave the convention." So there was that. Um, so she went to the end of the line. Now I was not too far from the end of the line, like inside the actual queue itself. And so she called me and they were like, "Oh no, we're only allowing people who are getting something signed. You're not allowed to go unless you have an item in hand to be signed." Even though they had said it was going to be fine for her to walk with me through the thing. Um, so again, she had all the money and all that, and my whole life, we've taken care of each other because my dad was always deployed and we had no family out here. So, I helped look after her, she helped look after me. And so I always get really stressed out if I don't know how to be able to help her. And since they said basically you're trapped in the line or you're screwed, like you won't get the a chance to have this, you will not get a signature. Um, I, of course, didn't want to leave or anything. And so I was like, okay, no, no, let's go ahead and get you in. Because I was far enough back that she could go into the queue. It wasn't ideal, but we could make it happen. So I went to the edge and I was like, because she was like, they're not letting me, da da da. They're telling me I need to go to like the other side of the convention. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not okay with that. So I went to the edge and I was like, excuse me, can you please, to one of the security guards, I was like, excuse me, can you please let my mom in? And, um, the guy was like, "No." And I was like, "I need to let her in." And you could tell it wasn't anything like I was starting to get, I was like, "She needs to be in. She needs," and she's in a scooter. So she's clearly like she's handicapped. So it's not like she was just there, there clearly was, and the guy was like, "No, no," he was starting to get real nasty. So then I started, a panic attack came on real quick because this guy was not listening to me. And I was like, "No, she needs to, I need her in here. I need her in here. You need to let her in here. I need her with me." And so I started to panic more and more because he started getting shittier and shittier. And then he threatened me. This is a security guard for the convention. He said, "If you don't calm down, you're leaving the whole convention." And so then I didn't, because I was in a full panic attack at this point in time. Now, when you're in a panic attack, like I said, you don't really have a whole lot of control over it. So, because of course I was getting louder and stuff like that, and I was starting to like cry and all of that because I was having a panic attack. So, I was not in control of my tone and my volume and all of that because I was having a panic attack. So all I could say was, "I need her. You need to bring her here. I need her. I need her." And then when he threatened to kick me out of the whole convention, the only thing I could think of, because of where I've dealt with this at like different mostly like at Universal or Disney or something, um whenever there's not an understanding, then I'll just call for the nurse, and then they have better understanding. Okay, you have a panic attack, like, so then all I could say was nurse because I couldn't explain that I was having a panic attack. I could not explain it because I was not in control. I was having a panic attack. You can't control it. These are things that just, it just happens. So um the only other thing I could say to try to tell this guy that I wasn't trying to throw a fit, that I was just actually having a full on panic attack, was nurse. And so he said, "If you want a nurse, you can leave the line and you won't come back, and then I'll call for a nurse." First of all, as soon as I said nurse, you should have called for a nurse. Because that means I'm seeking medical attention. You're now denying me medical attention, and you're also telling me that if I want medical attention, I am not allowed to proceed with my convention plans, which was to get a signature, to get the signature. A lot of things that are not okay here. So more security got called because he thought I was just trying to make a scene, that I was just throwing a fit. That wasn't the case. So, and the hyperventilating started and everything too. And so then, um, I froze, and finally one of the head, like the manager security, came over, and mom was able to explain to her like what was going on. And so then when mom said, "Hey, go ahead and come over here, it's okay," because she had worked it out that that I wasn't gonna, if I had walked out of there, because she had the medication I needed to be able to try to get this under control. um that she had kind of had set up an arrangement, whatever. So once mom said it was okay, like, then I was fine, and I went over there, and it took me a good minute to calm down. Um, so I was really, really shy, and they called a whole bunch of security over because of this. So then, of course, I felt more threatened because at this point in time, what the problem was is that I'm supposed to help take care of my mom. They were preventing that. So my brain was registering danger because I was registering that her life was in danger because I could not help protect her. So that's all that was being registered, and I went to a full panic attack. And I could not control anything that was going on except for just repeating what I needed to have be done, what I needed fixed. And so get over there and everything. And this guy almost put his hands on me to escort me out. Let me tell you, that would have gone extremely bad. He thought I was making a scene then. Oh hell. That would have been really, really bad. Luckily that didn't happen. Um Luckily mom was able to get a, the head of security over there to understand what was going on and help take care and diffuse the situation. But threatening somebody while they're having a panic attack is like one of the worst things you can do. And then he also told me to calm down, which is another like one of the worst things you can do. Now you can sit there and, tell like because one of the things about a panic attack is that so let's break this down a little bit. One of the things about the panic, like I said, the panic attack is your brain registering there being danger. So to tell somebody to calm down, your brain is not going to accept that because it's saying, don't calm down. You are in danger. That's not how that works. The best thing you can do is so this is some advice for, someone who maybe knows somebody who experiences panic attacks. Now, everybody is different in how they need to be able to work through their panic attack, and sometimes it varies on the panic attack too, because like there's times that um while mama will help grab, like she'll take my hand and her grabbing my hand will help. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes being touched at all makes it worse. It just depends. So there's usually you can kind of find something that does tend to work fairly well to help that person with through their panic attack, but it's not always the case because again, they're unpredictable. You're not in control of them. Your brain is registering fight or flight, we're in danger, and so then your logical part of it is gone because your brain is just throwing signals of how to try to keep ourselves alive. Or in my instance, how to keep my mom alive, because our whole base instinct is to preserve our genetics, which she's my mom. That's part of preserving my genetics. So her being in danger is going to be just as a problem as myself being in danger. Um, so there's that. I was not, I didn't even know how loud or anything I got. I just, all I kept, like, the only thing I could do was just keep repeating that I needed her with me. Um, so for him to tell me to calm down, telling somebody to calm down during a panic attack is a very bad idea. The best thing you can do is try your best to make the person feel safe because, like I said, they're registering that there's a life-threatening situation. That's what their brain is going through. Their brain is just saying that there is danger, major danger, life-threatening situation, we're in danger. So the best way to be able to try to handle someone who's dealing with panic attack is to reassure them that they're safe. So, say, don't tell them to calm down because you're dismissing their feelings, and that's not going to help anything. But if you say, I'm here, you're safe, it's okay. Sometimes, now, like I said, everybody's different, but those are better things to say, it's okay, you're safe, I'm with you. And that's why sometimes, like with a person that they trust, like for Llama Mama can do this, to grab my hand, because that's the whole thing is you need to let the brain know that you're not actually in danger. That's how you have to be able to calm down the panic attack, is to be able to, for the brain to register that we're not about to die. we we are okay. That's they do tend to be a little bit shorter and everything. But it depends on the stimulus, it depends on what's going on. Um, you also have to take it from the security guy's perspective of, is this another person saying whatever they need to get what they want, which really sucks that stupid people have ruined serious situation for. And this is a very big point that I'm bringing up, and this is why I felt this was an extremely important thing to have Mental Health Monday today, so I can talk about this situation. So here's the thing about that. There were clear signs that I was having a panic attack. Very clear. Um, and usually when if I start to have issues, I usually get offered a nurse actually, like at Disney or at Universal or whatever. So if I start to have a panic or anything, and because like a lot of times if I get told you need to calm down, I go no, 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 and you can kind of tell, like, especially when people are being repetitive and stuff. There's certain things that do indicate that it's clearly a panic attack, not just someone throwing a fit. And yes, you're right. That's very frustrating that there's people who throw a fit, and so then they make it look like that's just what's happening. Because I know that's what the guy was thinking, is I was just throwing a fit because I wanted my way, and that wasn't it at all. Um, and so that kind of brings me to a big point of today is if you are if you or someone you know are in any kind of job with of any kind of guest relations job of any where you're going to deal with um talking to different people, like anything like that, and especially if you are in security, please educate yourself, at least have an understanding of panic attacks, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure security, any kind of like response like that, they have to know basic first aid, like CPR and stuff like that. I feel strongly that that training should require like understanding people that understand panic attacks. Because the problem is, and like last year at Comic-Con, there was a few times I had panic attacks, and it was the security, because there's a lot more security than there are nurses. And the nurses tend to wait at the little first aid center. They don't just walk around waiting for somebody. So they have to get called, and that takes a minute. The security is wandering around. They're there to help make sure at all times everyone is safe. Now that's the problem, is the whole thing about a panic attack is you're feeling that you feel threatened, you feel that you're in danger. So a security guard, the whole thing about their job is to help keep you safe. So I feel that it is really important that if you work in security, that you understand when someone's having a panic attack, you need to help what you can do to help make them feel safe, not perpetuate the situation. Um, it's and like I said, last year at Comic Con, I had some panic attacks. There was a point in time that I had a panic attack kind of the middle of the aisle, and the security guard grabbed my hands, and even though I was kind of in the way, I mean, not totally, there was still like enough room, but I was kind of in the way. He grabbed my hands and he was like, "Breathe, breathe. It's okay. You're okay. I've got you." He worked me through it. And then once I was calm, once he felt that I was calm, then he was like, "Okay, go ahead and step off to the side, and when the line reopens, blah 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 blah, whatever. Just try to come check back, etc." Anyway, point is that I had, and I know Llama Mama experienced a panic attack during Comic Con last year too, and the security let her go off to the side in an area that's technically not supposed to have anybody over there until she was feeling okay and feeling, so the security that I have dealt with in the past have been really great. And so I was really kind of surprised at this, that they didn't know that it was clearly, because again, I felt that it was very, from what I understand of it, I felt that it was very clear that it was having a panic attack. And like once I said nurse, that should have been it. Because why would I be calling for a nurse if I was just trying to get my way? That's not something people tend to go for, is people don't tend to go, like if they're wanting their way, if they're just, throwing a fit because they want their way, people don't tend to ask for a nurse. So the fact that he was threatening me with being able to get medical attention, that is so unacceptable. You should never do that. If someone is asking for medical attention, there should be no questions. You get them medical attention because you don't know what's going on. Maybe visibly they seem like they're fine, but if they're asking for medical attention, you get them medical attention. And without punishment. There should be no punishment for seeking medical attention, because that was the thing. He said I could have a nurse if I wanted to forego my chance of ever getting the signature. Because he said, if you want a nurse, you can leave the line permanently. and then I'll get you a nurse. As soon as I said nurse, he should have called for a nurse. Period. End of story. And I said it a couple times. So there's that. Um, because what if there was something more serious going on? What if I was, having chest pains and I wasn't able to explain that? And something much more serious could have happened. I mean, luckily that didn't happen, but if someone's seeking medical attention, no questions, you should help them. So I feel that it really should be if and then the showrunner, like I said, he came over and he did not like mom was explaining the whole situation of what happened and he was like, I didn't, that's not something we prepared for at all. You have a very unique situation because usually we just have, somebody in the party stand in the line and then go from there. But yeah, you have a unique situation where sometimes you have to have your daughter with you and you can't stand in the line. So that's a unique situation. We didn't prepare for that. And I was really, really shocked because this isn't a new convention. This convention's been going on for 5 years, is what I've heard. It was my first time at this convention, but I heard from other people that this is like their fifth year doing this convention. So if you have if you're like running a convention or you have a place of business or something like that, we haven't yet, but we are going to be sending an email. The guy did say, please send me an email with all your feedback because there's a lot more than just this. And we're going to, and he was like really serious about it. And hopefully he'll actually take it seriously. But the whole thing that I wanted to talk about, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, that I felt it was really important to talk about this, was one, if you have, like you're putting on a convention or you have a place of business or something, you, you know, you need to be able to have at least some kind of knowledge of what it's like when someone has a panic attack. Because again, a panic attack is something that is out of a person's control. The brain is registering that there is a life-threatening situation and it can occur anytime. So try to educate yourself, at least remotely, on a panic attack. And that's the thing is if you're starting to notice something like that, like I said, usually, I don't know if she might have. I don't know. I'm still exhausted. It was bad. This is one of the worst ones I've really had in a while, and it drained everything out of me because it was bad, 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 bad. Um, so I think she might have, but but yeah, so if you're running something like this, please have yourself educated and please have people who are help running educated, at least basic. If you feel that this person is getting out of hand, um, that because like I said, um, like a lot of times with Disney stuff, they'll say, "Are you okay?" or whatever, and then usually there's a way for me to say no, like I'm not okay, I'm not okay. And that usually is an indication of a panic attack. If it's usually just like, no, I'm not okay because of this, and this, that's usually what happens when somebody's just throwing a fit about it. But it was just very clear. From what I understand, it was very clear that it was a panic attack because when you're talking about somebody repeating themselves like that, and it just not, and I was starting to actually hyperventilate. Um, I feel that people need to be educated a little bit, just have a little bit of an understanding of panic attacks, especially if you're working in any kind of guest relations, you're running any kind of event, you have any kind of place of business. And if you are, I really, really, really feel strongly that security should be trained, at least have some kind of basic training because their job is to help keep people safe. When you're talking about someone having a panic attack, they do not feel safe. So you should be able to have at least some kind of understanding of how to help them feel safe again. Now, you may not have all the answers, but at least not contribute to them feeling unsafe. Also, like I said, panic attacks are unpredictable. You don't know what could end up happening because the brain is registering danger, which means, because, like, if that guy would have touched me, I probably would have started fighting and not completely out of my control because, again, it's a fight or flight response for a reason. So, that's the thing about panic attacks is they can become dangerous because the person is registering life-threatening situation. So the brain will do what it feels it needs to do to keep you alive. Usually, yes, usually it's more of like a hyperventilating type of thing, but it's not always like that. Like I said, Llama Mama, hers manifested as rage. So I feel that it is something that is super important and super needed is for anybody in some kind of position like that, like especially security. I know they have to know some kind of basic first aid. Um, they should be because like I know this because of my degree in psychology. First responders are trained to know how to deal with that because um like firefighters and stuff even they're trained to help with like if there's a really bad experience that happens um and this is something that's really key because like what it was there was a book I read and it was talking about PTSD in children and it went through actual situations that had occurred with children and one of them was I don't remember what happened but I think this child saw their parent die or something like that. It was like something like in a war. It was pretty horrific. Point is, um, what happened was the first responder was a firefighter who went to the child and immediately was trying to tell the child, "You're safe now. I'm here with you. I will keep you safe." And those are key words. So, first responders are trained to handle things like that. Why isn't security? Anybody who is supposed to help keep people safe it has any kind of at all any effect on people's safety, that should include panic attacks. Because that person, when they're having a panic attack, does not feel safe. So there should be, and if you're not sure, you call somebody else. So I feel that that is something that is super, super important. I was really shocked. So one of the big things, my whole point about like one of the whole points of what I wanted to, and one, I wanted to share this experience so people can understand on multiple levels here. I want people to understand who people who deal with panic attacks, which mind you, you can have panic attacks and not have anxiety. There's a thing that's actually called panic disorder where you have frequent panic attacks, but you don't necessarily have anxiety. Because anxiety and panic attacks, yes, they usually coincide, but they are different. Because like I don't know if this is official in the DSM-5. DSM-5 is what they help diagnose psychological stuff. Um but people talk about anxiety attacks and panic attacks. They are different. So anxiety attacks tend to build and they can last for a while. So, and I actually didn't even realize this until somebody mentioned it actually this weekend and I did some more investigation into it. There's times that I'll be sitting there and I'll start fidgeting and I'll start freaking out and everything and my mom or my dad will be like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know. I just feel this, like impending doom. Like I don't feel I'm starting to get real anxious." And so what I've said is like I feel like I'm fighting a panic attack. What's actually occurring is I'm starting to have an anxiety attack. So anxiety attack tends to be a little more slow building and it tends to be a little more longer lasting. It can last days, it can last a while. It's just where you are and that it happens with people who have anxiety. This is anxiety attacks occur for people who are diagnosed with anxiety. So you can have panic attacks without having anxiety. You can have panic attacks. You can have a panic attack and have never even experienced any kind of anxiety or any kind of panic. Panic attacks can happen to anyone at any time because it is the brain registering your life or someone, very close to, like your kids or your parents or something, in danger. So I feel that, one, if you do have issues with panic attacks and you maybe know some of your triggers, because like for me, my trigger is not being able to help make sure my mom is okay. That was a big thing for me. Was I don't like to be like, if she's home and stuff, that's fine. But like when we're out in public, especially in a place that we're not super familiar with, I don't know, you know, any kind of resources that can help her immediately. I don't like that, because if her blood sugar, because there's times that her blood sugar will go from, 150 to 30. It happened the other day, actually. It happened the other night. And she got really sick. It was really, really bad. She's okay. But the point is, like, within 5 minutes, she can go from being totally fine to not knowing a single thing, to convulsing, to, not being able to speak. So if somebody isn't there to be able to help make sure she's okay, then, and if I'm, so I was feeling, and that's something else, is I know one of my other triggers is feeling trapped. Because like when we go to a restaurant, I have to be usually like against a wall or something so I can make sure I can see at all times my exit route. So to be told that I'm trapped in this line was one of my triggers. And two, I was being told that I could not help my mother when I've, spent years taking care of her, and that's a job that I very much have, is, I take care of mom. And so to be told that for those two things that are those are both triggers for me, and they got set off. Unfortunately, it's hard to completely, if you are aware of your triggers, good, that's great. Um, then you can know how to try to work around it. And for me, I did try. We talked to somebody beforehand, making sure it was going to be okay for her to sit off to the side there and join me when it was time. However, so right there, we established, I did something to make sure that I tried to do something to make sure that trigger wasn't going to be a problem. However, again, you're talking about, so I'm talking about by like unpredictability, all of a sudden that changed. So then I got triggered. Um, and you can't, like I said, you can't control this. Like, if you know your triggers and you can try to do things, you can try to plan and do things to help avoid those triggers getting set off, highly recommend it. Um, but I mean, I wish I had, for people who deal with panic attacks, I wish I had a better answer, because I honestly, like, I don't know, if it wasn't for mom being able to be rational and being able to talk to somebody who actually listened and understood, um, I don't know what would have happened, because it could have, that whole situation could have escalated way worse, and then because it was already pretty bad. And trust me, that's not something I want. I don't, it's kind of, not that I'm saying you should be embarrassed at all, because you're not, shouldn't be. But like, I was sitting there talking to the other people in line with me, and it was chill, and we were having fun, and then all of a sudden I go into this. It's not something that I enjoy. It's not something that I want to sit there and start yelling and freaking out and panicking and crying and all this stuff. That's not something I want to do. It's not a good time, It's sometimes it can be kind of embarrassing. Now, you shouldn't be embarrassed by things that just happen. This is just part of, just like where you have to cough because you have a tickle in your throat, or, you're whatever. It's there. There's no difference. Remember, mental health is health, period. So there's that. Um, but I wish I had a better answer for helping people who deal with this and how they could help get themselves out of a situation like that. Because if it wasn't for a mom, I don't know how that situation the situation could have gone very, very badly, like even worse than it already was. Um, but I did back in October talk about how conventions have resources to help you with these situations. Sweden official, thank you so much for the follow. Let me follow you back. So I felt that it was really important for me to get on here and explain that not every convention does in fact have this. There are conventions that do. So I do recommend, because like I said, conventions are unpredictable. Uh, in this story, you can see that because we were told one thing that she was going to be fine, um, and then all of a sudden it wasn't fine. That she like she was told she had to go completely away. So, like I said, that whole unpredictable element. Um, you never know how things can go at a convention. Now, granted, this applies to a lot of other aspects of life, but I'm just focusing on conventions because that's what this whole situation is directly related to. And that's what I talked about back in October because I remember before TwitchCon doing a mental health Monday segment on, you know, checking the resources and utilizing resources and stuff like that at these conventions because they have them. I didn't know that not all conventions have them. And if you are a part of a convention, if you run a convention or you know someone who runs a convention or something like that, please look at having some kind of setup to help with situations like this. San Diego Comic-Con, the biggest convention, the convention that honestly started all other conventions. San Diego Comic-Con has so many different things set up to help with situations like this. I I'm pretty sure they have their security trained on, people when people have panic attacks cuz at least I mean maybe not completely, but I at least the security that I interacted with last year, they all seem exactly what to do and how to handle it and everything like that. And they didn't even um they knew how to they were really great. And like I said, they have a quiet zone. They have an entire ballroom. It's not directly inside the convention center, but it's right part of the hotel that's right next to it. They have an entire ballroom that's a quiet center. That's, to help with anybody who needs to help to get away from all those stimulus, who needs to calm down. They have an entire center like that. And I thought that more places, more conventions had that. And they don't. Not all conventions have considered and thought about these things. So if you know someone who runs a convention or you are part of a team or something with the convention, find out if they have these kinds of things set up. And if not, suggest trying to look into that because it is important. Um, so that's one thing that I wanted to say. The other thing is, if you work in security or anything like, anything like that, especially in particular where you're trying to help keep people safe, part of keeping people safe is when someone is in a panic attack, you need to make sure they feel safe because then they can become a danger to others and to themselves is one thing, but the biggest thing is they don't feel safe. And your job is to kind of help make people to help make sure the area is safe. That's kind of the whole thing is to make sure that the area is safe. And so part of that does include an individual who may not feel safe because of them having a panic attack. So my whole thing about this was if you are someone who deals with panic attacks, try to find out if there's any resources. If you have concerns, try to talk to somebody and continue to talk to people, ask for a manager from there. Because usually, hopefully, you'll have somebody, at least somebody who has an understanding of panic attacks. Because we did end up having, unfortunately, the guy that was talking to me did not have any understanding of this. But there were other people who understood panic attacks because most of the security didn't understand. The other people, some of the other security who were over there, they didn't understand panic attacks because they have them themselves. It's usually because like they have a child who has them, or a sister or a brother or whoever, like somebody that's close to them has them, so they have an understanding of them that way. Um, and I feel like that everybody should try it. Honestly, everybody I feel like should have some basic understanding of panic attacks because they can happen anytime to anyone. And you know, maybe maybe you're not security, maybe it's not your job to help keep people safe, and that's totally fine. But you know, maybe if you see somebody having a panic attack, you can go ahead and help them somehow. Like, if maybe if you may not be able to help them directly, but maybe you can help. If you see that occurring, maybe you can try to find somebody to help them, to somehow get them help. So I just feel that it's an extreme. I just feel in general we should be educated about panic attacks. If we can get educated about first aid, we should be educated about panic attacks, because that should be just as important, because it's just as dangerous and everything. So that was my big thing is, if you know you deal with panic attacks, try to see if there's resources. Um, try to do anything sorry. Um, try to do anything you can to um to help keep yourself, to help have do anything you can to potentially help reduce. And unfortunately, it is something that, because I did do things to help reduce the chances of me having any issues, and unfortunately, it didn't work. But the best thing I can suggest, I wanted people to be aware that the information I said back in October isn't as true as I thought, unfortunately. Um, but there is still truth in it, is that there are in fact conventions that do have accommodations. So do find that out, do figure that out, do everything you can to find out to figure out ways to be able to prepare for, keeping the chances of having a panic attack down if you can, and to hopefully have anything that might be um in place to be able to, help you if for some reason it does occur. Unfortunately, like I said, panic attacks are completely unpredictable and uncontrollable, so that can be very hard when you're having one. Um, that's why if you can go with somebody that you know who knows how to handle them, it's ideal. Um, but I'm not saying that you can't, if you deal with panic attacks, that you can't go to a convention by yourself. That not at all what I'm saying. If you want to do what you want to do, don't let anything hold you back. You should be able to enjoy your life. But I wanted to make that clear that not every convention does in fact have these things planned out. There are conventions that do. So find that out. I highly recommend finding that out. That's something that I learned this weekend. Is this weekend I found out that there isn't there wasn't quite the accommodations that were that we were surprised by the lack of accommodations that there were. So, and we found that out as we were going along. Um, Now we kind of want to try to find, if I go to another convention, I want to try to find that out immediately. I want to find out what resources and whatnot there is. I mean, we did that a little bit, but not, obviously not quite enough. Um, but yeah, I wanted to let people know who deal with panic attacks to try your best to find out resources that you can, and, you know, be cautious, I guess. I don't know. I really wish I had a better answer, because like I said, I really don't know how I would have been able to be okay and handle it if it wasn't for the fact that Llama Mama was actually she was the one actually calm and was able to talk to somebody. and get the situation in check. And luckily the security team after that, once that one guy got removed, the security team after that, they were really cool, they were really understanding. They were able to do it to where they marked my spot in line, and they kept an eye on it, and then they had me do exactly, they had mom and I both come up when it was like come up to the table when it was my turn, so that way I could sit off to the side, more isolated, and be able to breathe and get myself collected again after having that panic attack. So luckily that was really nice. And that's the thing is, hopefully there's somebody you can find. So if there's maybe a situation where, because I mean, unfortunately, when I went to line, I didn't know that it would be a you're trapped in there, or you're if you leave, you're done. I didn't quite know that. Part of that was things they changed as they went along. And of course, every table was different too, because there was a miscommunication between the um the staff for the talent and the staff for the convention and the security. So that wasn't great. That definitely needed to change. Um, but if you have concerns, try to talk to somebody. If that person can't help you, ask for somebody else, like ask for their manager or something. Hopefully, there'll be somebody you can find who will be able to give you a good answer. And make sure you know their name. You notate their name, you notate their, any characteristics or something, so that way if you have a problem, you can try to ask for them to be called. Um, that's probably one of the best things I can try to recommend with as far as where my situation was. Because like I said, unfortunately conventions are unpredictable. But definitely when you very first get your information, try to find out if there are accommodations already and seek them if you need them. Otherwise, if there's concerns, try to talk to somebody until you can get, and just continue to, ask for someone else, there's surely somebody who should be able to have some kind of answer. Um, might take a little bit, but there should be somebody who should be able to have some kind of answer, and make sure you notate who they are, so that way if you need their help, you can get them again. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about for somebody as far as people who deal with it. And then my big thing was that if you are in security, or if you run a convention or anything like that, if you or are you part of a convention team, if you are part of any of that, please educate. Anyone should educate themselves, at least have a basic understanding of a panic attack. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to understand everything because every panic attack is different. But if you can try to at least have a basic understanding, so that way you can, try to, because the way things were going, you could tell it wasn't just I was throwing a fit. You could tell, especially since it, mom knows that she said that it was getting pretty clear that it was a panic attack. So there are signs. There are definitely signs. Like shaking, breathing problems, usually when it's just this constant, when one phrase is just being constantly repeated, and you can kind of see when someone's like legitimately not able to process what's being said. There definitely are signs. So educate yourself on those signs. If you know somebody who has a job like this, encourage them to educate themselves. So that's anybody, like I said, anybody should be educated about at least a basic understanding of a panic attack and some basic signs that could indicate a panic attack, and understand that not every panic attack is different. Somebody doesn't have to hyperventilate to be having a panic attack. So don't assume that that's the only indication of a panic attack. Try your best to get an understanding of what's truly going on in the situation, which can be hard. And if you're having troubles getting an understanding, like really getting an understanding of what's happening in the situation, ask for somebody else to help you who maybe has a better understanding of what's going on. Because likely, if you're really not able to get an understanding of what's happening, because it's not like the only thing I was asking was for my mom to be able to be with me. I wasn't demanding to go to the front of the line or anything like that. So it wasn't like I was demanding to get something out of it. Um, so that's something that I feel is that was kind of my big thing is um my big thing about wanting to talk about this is just I wanted to clarify my misinformation from October. There are conventions that do have resources, find them out. Not every convention does have those resources. What's up? I'm almost done. Not every convention has those resources, unfortunately. But there are that do. Find them out and find out how, how they might be able to help you. And if you're not finding resources that you may need, try to talk to somebody and continue to talk to somebody, like, ask for someone else, ask for somebody else. So, try your advocate for what you need. Advocate for your health because remember, mental health is health. So advocate for your health. And that means if, you're concerned about possibly getting triggered by something and you need to know if there's some kind of accommodation or something that can be done, you keep asking until you can get an answer. Um, and on the other side, for those of you who are, especially, I feel like security is something that should really, really be, it should really have an understanding because your job is to help keep people safe. That's why you're there, is to help keep the area safe. And that should include because if someone's having a panic attack, they do not feel safe, which to me means that there's an issue that's an issue that should be addressed because you're supposed to help keep everyone safe. And if you're not able to do it, you ask for somebody else. So if you're not sure, then try to ask for somebody else. Um that was kind of my big thing. Was just I just wanted to clarify to people that, unfortunately the information I gave back in October wasn't as accurate as I had hoped. There are conventions that do have accommodations. For those that don't, try your best to see if there's any kind of accommodations. If you need accommodations, continue to talk to somebody until you can try to get an answer and try to figure out a plan. Um, and for on the other side of that, for those of you who work at any situation that, you know, could end up like a convention, if you work for a convention, if you run a convention, or, especially if you're security for anything, get a basic understanding. Everyone should have a basic understanding of panic attacks, but at least if you are, especially if you're in security, try to understand at least somewhat of panic attacks. And if you feel that there's a situation that's going on and you're uncertain about it, surely there's somebody you can call. Because I know most security have like little radios and stuff like that. So, ask for somebody else. Don't start threatening someone immediately. um, there's, I just feel like that's because that was what was escalating things so much worse. So that was kind of it. That's kind of all I wanted to talk about, was just I wanted to explain the situation that occurred with me this weekend because I was really surprised. And I mean, it's still kind of taken a lot out of me of what happened because it was a really, really bad panic attack. And I've not had a panic attack like that in a very long time. So, but yeah, I wanted to correct the information that I gave back in October that not every convention has things planned out for situations for people, who may have issues with being overstimulated or panic attacks or something like that, or have severe anxiety. Not every conventions have resources for that set up. Um, but that doesn't mean you can't find out if they do, so you know how to utilize them. Like San Diego Comic-Con has a quiet room. They also have disability services that can help. They have a lot of people there that can try to help figure out a way to help you however they need to. So try your best. If you know that there's something that you need that you're concerned about, try your best. Just, it may be a chain thing. You might have to continue to ask for someone else, ask for somebody else. But your health is important. You should be able to enjoy the convention just like everybody else. There's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to do that. Because, again, mental health is health. If you're somebody who runs a convention, or at any kind of event or something like that, try to have these things kept in mind that there are people who need accommodations like for things like this. And if you are someone who works in security or, crowd management or something like that, please, please, please educate yourself on this, because especially with security, your whole job is to help keep the area safe, is to help. And of course, obviously, as the situation escalates higher, you call the police or you call somebody else. And that's the thing, is you're there to help keep the area safe, to help keep people safe. So if someone is having a panic attack, they do not feel safe. So either you need to know a way to be able to help them feel safe again, or you need to be able to figure out a way to call somebody to then um, help with help them be able to manage their panic attack. Um, sure, I agree, but brother sister is on minimum wage. I mean, I get that and I understand, and I know that's something that is a problem. Is like you certain jobs, like, you don't get paid a lot. There's a lot of jobs that don't pay as much as they should. But the thing is, I personally, as a human being, if you're going to enter into a job like that, and I understand you not wanting to care too much about your job because you're not getting paid enough, but as a human being, if you have decided to take the job to help keep people safe, to help try to manage the area to keep people safe, try to have an understanding of that, because I don't think it's fair if I mean, I know everybody needs a job and stuff, but as a human being, don't look at it as, this job doesn't pay me enough. As a human being, and that's why I think everybody should have an education, have an understanding of what panic attacks are, because maybe you're passing somebody who's having a panic attack and they need help. Maybe you can't help them, but at least you might be able to identify that they need help and try to ask for help for them. Understanding is the minimum. Exactly. That's the thing, is there needs to be an understanding. I get it. There's a lot of jobs that don't pay enough, and so you don't want to invest a lot into it. But don't look at it as being, mad about you not getting paid enough for your job. Look at it as being a good person and being a human being to help, that you wants to make sure that other human beings are able to live a life safely. Um, Responsibility having people being in support is the on the event support. Wait, paying more for people. Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, is yes, there isn't enough. I agree. There's a lot of jobs that don't get paid enough, and that I know that there are security. I know there's different levels of security, and I know there are people in security who don't get paid enough. But that's one of those things where, okay, I'm not saying that you have to completely educate yourself on all of it, but if you feel that the situation is becoming an issue, I know there's somebody else you can call. You have managers and stuff like that. So if you feel that there's a situation that you're not sure of, surely there's someone else you can call in to help with it. So if, you know, have exactly a basic understanding, of panic attacks, of understanding that. And if you feel, like, for example, with what happened with me, when I started to, instead of threatening to kick me out of the thing, because, and I wasn't screaming or anything like that. I just kept saying, no, I need her with me. I need her with me. I need her with me. And I kept repeating myself. That's all I kept saying. There should have been, if you couldn't when the guy couldn't get through to me, when he couldn't have me understand anything, he should have asked for a backup instead of continuing to threaten me to get kicked out of the. Because if you feel that there's a situation going on that a person may need to be removed, or that's escalating quickly, and you don't understand if maybe it's because that person is just, making a scene, or if it's because they're having a panic attack, because sometimes it can be very hard to tell the difference. Ask for somebody else, because surely with more than one person, you can kind of help figure it out. Let's be honest, how many times there's a situation where higher up? It depends, but there's always someone higher. And that's the thing is, if you are in a place of a higher situation, then you should educate yourself more. If you're being put into a higher situation, that's the whole thing, is that applies to that person too. If you're put in a situation where you are a higher up in security, where you're supposed to have even more knowledge and capability of handling situations, you should have knowledge of this. And that's the problem. And that's the whole reason why I'm talking about this. You're right. It doesn't happen a lot. And this is this is my whole big point about this. Is one, I wanted to talk a little bit about the people, like any kind of tips and advice for people who have um issues with panic attacks. But the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, the whole reason why I really wanted to talk about this, is because don't look at it from your job. Look at it as being a human being. If somebody was on the ground bleeding, if somebody had cut their, leg, and they were on the ground bleeding and everything, and they didn't have, they clearly had no resources to help the bleeding stop, would you just walk by and go, "Oh, it's fine, I'm just gonna let them bleed out"? No. There is no difference. That person is in danger. That person's, health is at risk. A panic attack is no different. Mental health is health. And people really need to remember that, because those those signals that are being sent, that is hurting to recognize that there is bleeding and needs to stop, is all sent from the brain. The brain can't tell the difference between mental and physical pain. And a panic attack, the brain is registering that you are in danger, or someone close to you is in danger. And that's the thing, is I know it's the sad reality that not enough people do, and that's the whole reason why I'm talking about this, is I'm advocating, I am encouraging, if you are one of those people who are in the position to be able to do something about it, please educate yourself. I'm not asking for, to force yourself to try to put more into your job that doesn't pay enough. I'm saying, as a human being, if somebody was bleeding out, you would call for help. If you couldn't help them, if you're able to help them, if you're able to educate yourself on how to help them, great. But if you can't help them, you find someone else who can. There is no difference. And that needs to be understood. Is there is no difference. If somebody was hurt, you wouldn't just walk by and let them continue to bleed out. You would either help them yourself, or you would seek help elsewhere for someone to then be able to help them. A panic attack needs to be assessed the exact same way, because that person is registering that they are in a life-threatening situation. That is all that is being registered. A panic attack is the brain saying that we are fight and flight because there is a life-threatening situation, and there's no control over it. So if you can't handle, if try to educate on how to maybe see the signs. If you're not sure about it, find someone else. If you're put in a position where you are in a higher power, that you are supposed to be able to handle any kind of situation, educate yourself on that. That is part of your job. If part of your job is being able to diffuse the situation, that means understanding a panic attack because that is a situation that you should be able to understand and know how to be able to handle. I mean, I don't blame you or anything, but time zone wise, I guess you're in America. Yes, I'm in California. That shit seems to happen over there. You pay 5K plus for an ambulance ride. Shit seems fucked over there. I hope stories, I read stories of people jumping an ambulance because it's too expensive. Yeah, I understand that. I do. Yes, I know. I know all too well because there was a situation where I had to call the ambulance for my mother because of issues with her diabetes and stuff that I wasn't able to. I didn't have the tools to be able to help her. So I do know that. I'm not saying call the ambulance. There are places like conventions, they have medical staff. So, and when I started yelling for the nurse, it should not have been a stipulation. You should have immediately called for a nurse because you don't know why I'm yelling for a nurse. The minute I said nurse, if you wanted to confirm, say you want a nurse, and when I said nurse or yes, that should have been it. No more questions, no more anything else. It should have, because a nurse does not cost something like a nurse at the convention or something. You are not required, like with something like that, they can't force you to go into the ambulance. They can't. Now, I know, like, if you're, obviously, like, actually dying, like, you're bleeding out or something, that's a little bit different. But if we're talking, this is talking about panic attacks. This is the whole thing about this is focusing on panic attacks. And my point of it is that a panic attack is just as dangerous. I mean, no, I understand. I get that. But the whole thing, because my biggest thing about, and I'm not going to get into all of, because you're right, we have not a great situation of how medicine is, there is a whole long topic I could get into about how things go as far as medical help and everything. And that's a much bigger scale thing. And I'm not going to get into all of that because is that involves some political things. And I'm not getting involved into all of that. All I'm trying to say, the whole point of this particular conversation is that I dealt with the situation because I don't know if you were here earlier when I explained what happened. Back in October, when I went, because this was a convention, and I'm going based off of this is what I'm talking about with the convention. Yes, well, and one of the problems, and this is one of the reasons why I do Mental Health Monday, because you're right. One of the problems is people, a lot of people, it got a little bit better after COVID, people understanding anxiety and depression and stuff because everybody kind of got it with having to be isolated. But mental health isn't taken seriously and it's not understood well. Um, oh, there's a commercial right now. But and that needs to change. That's one of the whole things about Mental Health Monday is I'm trying to, and I know that I'm not, I know I can't fix the way that our government and our society and everything is, but even if just one person um can get a better understanding either for themselves or for someone else, then I feel that what I'm doing here is important and has helped. I don't care if it was just one person. If one person has now went, okay, now I understand that you can't rationalize somebody with a panic attack. So if someone's dealing with a panic attack, all I can do is just try to make them feel safe or, help them get to someone who can do that. And some people did like COVID. Um, I don't know if the commercial is still going on. Oh wait, it is. Ad break's about to finish. We'll wait a minute. Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying COVID. I know that's not. Yeah. Oh, that's you. I'm lost. You saw that. Yeah. No, I know. Introverts, COVID. I. But the point is that like there was. Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is it depended on the area and everything. COVID was different for everybody, but it's just I did notice, it's just it was my I did notice that people, because there was a lot of people who got anxiety and stuff about the fear of what COVID could do, and then the isolation and stuff, like a lot of people were dealing with, because of, things being closed, like Disneyland and stuff, it did cause a lot of depression and anxiety and stuff in people. So that's become a little bit more of a topic that's discussed and known, but not enough, and it's not known in the best ways. So that's kind of my whole thing about Mental Health Mondays. I'm not trying to get into the whole political situation about how our government is set up. I'm not saying just depressed because of Disneyland, it was just an example. Um, I live in Southern California, so there was people I knew who I actually have a lot of friends who work at Disney, and so for them it was one of those things where it was like Disneyland never closes. They had only closed like 2 times in the entire time they had been open. And so for Disneyland to close was like it was kind of one of those all hope is lost. It was a symbol. Not a matter of, oh, I can't go to Disneyland. It was a symbol of hope that was shattered. And that was just an example that I used. But I'm not trying to that and that's not even what I my whole the whole thing about today, the whole the whole point that I'm trying to illustrate is today. So what I was oh, I earlier today, let me explain the situation because I don't think you were here earlier when I talked about the uh yeah, that's a little bit different. No, but yeah, exactly. That's just it. Is, it was just this it was a symbol. And yeah, there are people who that's their happy place. So it was taken away, and it was it did have some really major mental health effects on people. Um for more than because people, yeah, people just say, "Oh, it's just a theme park." But for some people it's more than that. And so that but today the whole thing, so 4 loading, error loading. I'm not sure if you heard earlier. So the whole point of what I wanted to talk about was back in October I talked about how conventions, because this is conventions related. This particular topic today. Um Back in October I was about to go to TwitchCon, and I had talked about how a lot of conventions have resources because at the time the conventions I had gone to had resources for people who have anxiety or have issues with being overstimulated, or any have issues with panic attacks, because you don't have to have anxiety to have panic attacks. Panic attacks and anxiety attacks are different. You can have a lot of and a lot of people who have anxiety do tend to have panic attacks, but panic attack, you can have no anxiety whatsoever and still have panic attacks, because panic attacks are your brain it's a fight or flight. You're in complete fight or flight. Your brain is registering that there is something that is life threatening, and you have no control over it because your brain is just trying to keep you alive. This example I can give is Larry, who has walked tall straight face 24/7 in public. But at Disneyland, they don't need to suit and they can open. Exactly. That's just it. It's more, yeah, Disneyland is more than just a place for people. It's a chance for them to, reconnect. It's a chance for them to be able to it's important for mental health for some people because they get to um get back involved with their inner child, or they get to, yeah, they get to let loose. They get to so it does it's more than just a place. Honestly, this is going to be offensive maybe, but if your only struggle is Disneyland closing, you're not able to enjoy rides, shut your privileged ass. Sure, you can be privileged and depressed because of reasons. That's the reason would be. But hey, doubt people actually feel like that. I, you're of course allowed to have your own opinion, but I don't, I feel that was kind of a little bit, yes, I agree, that was offensive. Um, It's not about being privileged. It's it's about, I mean, maybe a lot of people have a place that makes them feel safe, or a place that they, that makes them feel calm or something, even if it's just a tree, or kind of pressed ranking at this point, I guess, also. And like I said, I understand what you're saying, that it seems like it's just a privilege thing. But as I'm Lost was stating, Disney is, for some people, Disneyland, it's not about just, oh, let me just go have fun. It is, some people, it is therapy to them, essentially. Most people have some kind of safe place, essentially. And that could be somewhere outside. For some people, that's Disneyland. So, Disneyland isn't always about the rides. It's not about just, oh, I want to be able to go ride Space Mountain anytime. That's not what that's about. Yes, for some people it was. But the other thing is, you have to consider is there were employees. I know, because I have friends that work there. I have actually family that works there. There were friends who got because of the park being closed for so long, they had to end up letting people go. So I remember for 2 weeks there was emails sent out being told whether or not you had a job or you didn't. So Disneyland closing wasn't just, oh, I can't ride Space Mountain. So many people got laid off and never brought back. Exactly. There was actually a lot of people who were able to get brought back. There was a lot of people who ended up moving on. And but I remember because I was with one of my friends at the time when they got the email saying they still had a job, and I started crying with them because we knew that they had a job. So Disneyland isn't just about rides and, entertainment and having the privilege of it. People work there. It's their livelihood. Yeah, but I wasn't talking about them though. The actual people that struggled needed the respect. But like I said, it's not just because for me, when I go to Disney, I go to see my friends. That's what I mostly do is I go around and I see my friends. Sometimes I'll go ride stuff. So for me, Disneyland isn't, about going to hop on Indiana Jones. It's about going to see my friend who I love dearly. So Disneyland means different things to different people. It's not just an amusement park. It's not just about the rides. It's not. So yes, the whole thing talking about privilege, I disagree with you, because it's not talking about, because for for some people, Disneyland isn't about, yes, of course you have some people who feel entitled and all of that. You do, unfortunately, do have some of those people. But other people, it's more than that. Because for me, I wasn't going to be able to see my friends. When Disneyland closed, I didn't know when I was going to be able to go see them, because for me, that's the easiest way for me to see some of them, because they work so much and I live 100 miles away. So I don't live next door, so it's a little bit harder to go, oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're the same, but I am just explaining. I mean, like I said, I'm sure there were some people who were, but I just I want I just hope that you understand that when people got upset about that, and that was just an example. There was other things. There's many other things where people got upset that they weren't able to do because it was something that is important to their mental health, their mental state. And mental health is health. You take cold medicine when you get a cold. You make sure you get lots of rest. You make sure you eat what you need to. Yeah. Hold on just a minute. Okay, sorry. That was my mama checking on me. They're trying to get some stuff sorted out. Uh, I didn't even realize that my dad got home. But they're trying to get some stuff sorted out. There's things that we have life things going on, so we're just trying to figure all that out. But yeah, I kind of hard to exactly explain what I mean words. I'm thinking English is decent, but second language, so getting stuff. And I totally understand that. And I wish. I mean, I hope that I'm trying to understand you as best as possible, and I really, that's completely fine. There is nothing wrong with that. I think you're doing excellent. I just wanted to make sure when you said something about, because the statement that you made earlier, I just, I hope that you understood that there was more past that. And that was just all I was trying to say, was just that this wasn't, you know, and I'm glad that you seem to actually do understand that. So yeah, that was the thing, is it seemed like you felt that anybody who was upset about Disneyland was just being this privileged kind of pain, which actually kind of relates to the topic of today. You have a very small group that live particular rides, and the rest are fanatics about rides, mostly families making memories, not to live love. Yeah, exactly. That's just it. Is it does tend to be more about, it's not about just being at this amusement park and how many rides can we ride. It's a place where people connect with their families, with their friends, with, it's a place where they are able to be a child again, where they're able to, it's there's a lot of things about Disneyland um that are, really important to mental health. Disney World and Land has changed, I'd say, for the worse. I would agree with that. Disneyland Sea are the way it should be, in my opinion. I don't know much about Disney Sea. From what I understand, yeah, and that's a whole different issue, how Disneyland is now. There's kind of a reason why I don't go as often. I used to go very frequently, and it used to help a lot with my mental state. Now it can, and it has nothing to do with my friends. It has to do with the way that the company is run now. Um, Now Disney doesn't actually necessarily do the best things for my mental health. So it's a very complicated thing. But the thing was, when it did close, because yeah, it's not been the same since it reopened after COVID, honestly. Um, and it's just, as certain things have, like the economy and stuff, there's other things that have gotten worse. But it was like this big symbol of hope that just kind of, even people, I know there was even people who've never been to Disneyland who said, when they found out Disneyland closed, like that's when it was just like, this is really, this situation is really bad. Like it was a symbol. I recommend linking videos. Adults line up outside of the rides. Not going on it. Get to sing the songs, Baymax Big Hero. Like all day. Yeah, exactly. They do. There's people who just, yeah. You only went to Disneyland Paris. I've only been to Disneyland. I went to Disney World very briefly. I didn't get to explore as much as I wanted to. One day my goal is to go to all the Disney parks. That's one day the goal. Um, but yeah, it's like I said, it's a different thing. I do feel like here, I can't speak for other places. I do feel like here in America though, we do see Disneyland and Disney World as these kind of big, it's they're symbols. It's just kind of, it's because when you watch a Disney movie and it starts off with the castle. Only went to Disneyland. What Disney? Oh, Disneyland, California. Sorry, the original Disneyland. So, Disneyland in California. Sorry, I say Disneyland, and that most people, yeah, just Disneyland in California, the original park. So, yeah, yeah, that's. I do that with because usually here a lot of people here we either say Disneyland or Disney World. Disney World is the one that's in Orlando. Um, I'm ignoring that. Anyway, but the thing about it was that like kind of like when you see a Disney movie and you see the castle and you see the little thing that goes over the castle and you're just there's something about just that opening scene with watching a Disney movie and you see the castle that just gives you this, it was the same thing. It was kind of the same idea of like when the parks closed, it was basically that scene getting destroyed, you know, that castle the castles they kind of have this stand of hope, so decided to close Waffle House for the first time. No one had keys or knew how to. Oh wow, yeah, see, that's the thing is they had only closed there was one day that they closed because there was like a really severe earthquake. They closed the day that JFK was assassinated, and they closed on 9/11. Those were the only days they had closed before COVID. Of the over 50 years that they had been open, well, over 60 years at that point in time, like 60 something years, um, would have been, what, 65 years, I think? Of those, of all, there was only 3 times that that park closed. So for them to close for that extended period of time was just one of those very, crushing things, and people felt they it was a symbol. That was the big thing. And for some people, people that do go, it was a really big thing that affected their mental state. So it wasn't just a matter of a privilege saying of, oh man, I can't ride Space Mountain. It was more than that. Um so yeah, that I just wanted to make sure that that was and okay, so that kind of goes that does kind of relate to the topic here is there was the miscommunication that you at first that you thought that autocorrect. They didn't fully shut down for now. They knew. Yeah. So yeah, that's just it. Is so it. The point is like that they they didn't close for like just if they closed it was for an extreme reason. So that was a really big thing. Um, but yeah, I mean that's kind of a thing right there is that actually kind of connects to what happened is you know I obviously you said that it was more generalized than you had meant for it to say, but there was the whole point of some people like thinking that it was just a people were this entitlement, this that's your biggest problem is you can't go ride Space Mountain. That miscommunication kind of connects to the same thing because for me what happened was this guy thought I was just throwing a fit because I wanted to get something out of it. I was in line for an autograph. That was, and the line was because this person was a big deal, and the convention didn't handle it well. Um, and I needed my mom, who is in a scooter. She's in an ECV because she has problems walking. Her ankles will buckle and she'll fall, so she has problems walking for really extended periods of time. She's also a diabetic. So her blood sugar can go from 150 to 20. And so in 5 minutes, she can be perfectly fine to not knowing her name and passing out essentially. So I have to, especially in unknown areas like we were, because this was our first time at this convention. This was our first time in that city. I need to make sure I am able to be close and able to help her anytime. And this guy, because we had previously talked to them about can she hang off to the side because it was too hard for her to try to maneuver through the line. It was not impossible, but it was too hard. And if she had to leave for some reason, she couldn't get out. So we had talked to them previously. Could she sit over here until it was my turn and she would walk up with me? And that was agreed upon. And then suddenly that changed. She got yelled at and told she had to move. And then when she went to the end of the line to explain what was happening, she was just going to try to join me in line because she had all the money and stuff for it because we had already planned for her to come up when it was my turn to go up to the table. And then I was just like, okay, no, I need her with me. And the security guard jumped in front of me and started yelling at me about it. And then he threatened me. He threatened to kick me out because I started to have a panic attack. Panic attacks are not controllable. They just happen. It's not like I said, you know what sounds like a good time today? Let's have a panic attack. No, they're very exhausting. They're not fun. So, because I needed to be able to help her, I needed to be able to be close to her, and they were denying me that, uh, there was, I was seeing a threat because to me, she was in danger. So I started to have a panic attack. Um, and so this, when I started to say, I need her with me, I need her with me, and then he just was like, and I can't even remember what he was saying 100% because I was having a panic attack. So all I kept saying was, I need her with me, I need her. And he was like, no, no, no. And then I was like, no, I need her with me, she needs to be with me, she needs to be. And when I started to like, there's certain things that indicate a panic attack when if I'm just over here like, no, I want her with me right now. That's a little bit more like, okay, you're just causing a scene, you just want what you want. But when I say, "No, I need her with me. I need her with me. I need her now. I need her with me. I need her with me." That's usually an indication that there's something wrong. There is a panic attack. There's when it's getting repetitive, like constant repetitive and like in a very like, you can hear panic in people's voices usually. If you don't know that, then maybe try to learn that. And the guy threatened, he said, "You need to calm down," which that's the worst thing you can say to somebody when they're having a panic attack is to calm down. And I said, "No, I need her." Especially since I was saying I need her, not want, I was saying need. And so because I didn't know how to communicate that I was having a panic attack, the only thing I could get out was just nurse. And then once, because he had already threatened to kick me out of the convention if I didn't shut up, basically. And then when I said I needed a nurse, he said, "You can have a nurse if you want to leave the line and you will not be back. There should be no stipulation when you are asking for medical attention. Ever." And then more security got called over, so I felt threatened. And so that's kind of relates to that, is that he thought I was just making a scene and I just wanted to get what I wanted, and that wasn't it at all. I was having a panic attack. So there was a misunderstanding. As a diabetic as a has been an issue for whole life. It is not a constant anxiety for you. That said, panic when you feel well-being is threatened. Exactly, exactly. That's just it. And because our base instinct, our very, 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 very basic thing is that we preserve our genetics, which she's my mother. That means preserving my genetics. What about the person you needed, though? That simplified situation. Couldn't she confirm it? She tried. This is the person that's on here right now, Fanya Bybee. This is Llama Mama. She tried. So this is what happened. Let me go into a little bit better detail about the situation. We were at a convention. The person we were trying to see was in high demand because they never make West Coast appearance and they are a popular actor. So um we asked before I even got in line, can she sit over to the side because she's in an ECV, she's in a scooter, and it's those the line weaved, and so it's really hard for her to get through there. So we asked right from the start, and he wasn't even out yet. He was on his lunch break, but they were letting people in, and the line kept getting capped. So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, you got to jump in line even though he's not here, or you're kind of done. So we asked, is it okay if she waited over here? And then once I get up to the table, she will join me. And it was yes, not a problem. Then all of a sudden, she got pushed out, and they were like, "No, you need to get out of the way. We don't care." Da 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 da. And so she got pushed off to the side. So she went towards the end of the line. I wasn't too far back from the end of the line. I was close enough, and she was trying to make them understand what was going on, that she needed to be able to stay with me. And they were like, "No, if you're not getting something signed, you are not to be in the line. It doesn't matter. You can't join your family." So then I was like, no, okay, I'm going to handle this. And at the time, I wasn't having a panic attack because I was in the mode of my mom needs my help. She needs to be taken care of. And I'm going to make sure that happens. So I went over and I said, I need my mom to please come in here with me. And he was refusing. And so then it escalated quickly. And so I started to panic and I was like, no, I need her. I need her. I need her. And so then my mom was like, look, she's having a panic attack to the person that was on the edge. They ended up calling the head of security over. And so she was finally able to understand that I was having a panic attack and my mom had the medication too. So, um, they ended up working it out to where I went ahead and set off to the side. They marked my place in line, and then both her and I went up when it was my turn. They, like I said, they marked my place in line, so that way I was able to step out of line and be able to calm down. But they were refusing to let her join me. They were absolutely refusing. So I had a panic attack. And that's just it. And that's kind of my whole thing. Right. And that's the thing is I understand. I get it. Like some people are there they don't get paid enough and some people are there just to get the paycheck. But I feel that as a human being, not not talking about, your job description, but as a human being, if you have decided to sign up to help protect someone's safety, if you're deciding, if you are agreeing, I want to be able to be there to support the safety of others, you should be able to, one, know how to handle it, or you should be able to call someone else to handle it. If you feel you can't handle it, then and that's the whole thing. That's what that's the whole thing that I wanted to talk about with this is because I gave false information back in October on a Mental Health Monday is that conventions have resources for people who have anxiety and for panic attack. They have trained people all around the convention, and they have a whole section of people there to help, and they have accommodations in place. TwitchCon is the same way. They have accommodations as well. I thought all conventions were like that, and I was proven wrong this past weekend, and that's something I wanted to do was I wanted to come on here and explain that that's a problem, that is a problem. My girlfriend has mental struggles and needs some support from time to time. If someone prevents me from what she needs, I'm going to fight and reach them so I can match it. Exactly. Now now put on there so you understand. Now put on there panicking about it. Because that's and this like I said, this guy told me that if I didn't calm down, he was going to kick me out of the convention. Then because I didn't know how to articulate any other way that what was going on wasn't just me throwing a fit, that it was a medical issue going on. She gets panic attacks. Okay. So you have an understanding of them. Um I I couldn't articulate because again, panic attacks are uncontrollable. I didn't know how else to articulate that I wasn't trying to throw a fit, that I was starting to have a problem, a health problem because I was having a panic attack, so I called for the nurse. So first he told me to calm down or I was going to get kicked out of the convention, and then he told me if I wanted a nurse, I was to get out of line and I would not be let back in. There should be absolutely no consequences for needing medical attention. Yes, I agree. I'm very glad that you're a supporter and I'm very glad that you know how to help her and that you are there, that you are very strong about making sure that she gets the help she needs. So that was the big reason what I wanted to come on here and talk about today was that I wanted to, clear up that not every convention, like I thought that was the case, but it's not. Not every convention actually does have a system in place for incidences like this. And so, if you do run a convention or you know someone who runs a convention, talk to them about that. See if maybe there's something that can be done because the showrunner came up and was like, we didn't even think about this. We didn't even prepare for something like this. It's not even something that crossed our minds. So they did ask for our feedback and everything, and we do plan to talk to them about it and whatnot. Like I said, this was literally yesterday that happened. Um, but I wanted to come on here and let people know that I had the misinformation that places had this, had resources, because a lot of people do. And check. If you know you have issues with panic attacks, or you know somebody who you have, and that's the thing, is that's the best. If you do have issues with frequent panic attacks, one of the best things you can do is have somebody with you that knows how to help you. Because yeah, some people, they don't know what's going on and they don't know how to help you, and everybody's different with what they need to get through a panic attack. Um, so if you have somebody you know and you trust, because again, that's the panic attack is being registered as there's a life-threatening situation. So if you have somebody that you feel safe and trust and secure with, then they're going to be more likely to be able to help you out of this panic attack. Um, so that was what I wanted. That was my whole thing about, is that I wanted to come on here and let people know that not every convention has that. And I very much advocate that if you know that there's issues that you might be concerned about, talk to somebody. And if they don't have an answer, ask for somebody else. And eventually somebody should have some kind of answer. Make sure you get their name. You have, take descriptions of them. So that way, if it's like, hey, this person said that, they could help me with this, and it becomes an issue, then you can try to, get that person's help or whatever. So I recommend trying to figure out a way to get any help you need. Figuring out your resources from the start, and those resources can be just the person that is with you. And that was the thing, is I wanted to come on and inform people that not every convention has the resources that other conventions have. And they should. But a big thing is that I really feel, if you are, and I understand that, people are just trying to get a paycheck and stuff like that, and people don't get paid enough. But as a human being, you wouldn't let somebody, this is just an example. I'm not like trying to, but to kind of give an example of the seriousness that this should be taken. If you saw somebody bleeding, if somebody had cut their leg really bad or something like that, and you saw them bleeding and they didn't have any kind of way to bandage, they were just like trying to hold the blood or whatever, you would either, if you're able to, help them, or you would find help for them. There should be no difference when it comes to a panic attack, because while there may not be physically anything going on, their brain is registering that there is a life-threatening situation. So it is just as dangerous as if you were bleeding out. Because either way, while it may not be physically being seen, you are being registered, because your brain is going to register both ways, that there is a life-threatening situation, that there is an issue, that you need help, that so, because mental health is health, period. It's no different when you need to rest because you have a fever and you need to take some, Motrin to help get it down or whatever. There is no difference in what you might need for, you know, it, there should be no difference, because mental health is health. The brain can't tell the difference between mental and physical pain. So that was, but yeah, that was, I know I have an ad break right now. But I'm probably gonna go ahead and wrap up here in a minute. Because I feel that I did hopefully get my my point across for today. Of course, there is many, 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 many things to talk about. I don't know. I just have the automatic thing going on for Twitch, whatever they recommend. I have that going. Um, so I don't exactly know what the control is with it. Okay, wait, hold on. Let's see. Fully unrelatable, but I used to be best friends with her best friend. First person I called during my girl's was ex-friend because we shouldn't like each other. I think that's excellent what you did. I mean, yes, I get what you're saying, but they were ex-friends and stuff like that. But if they were friends for a while, if that was her best friend, then yeah, she probably has an understanding of, how to handle those situations. So you did exactly what I'm kind of talking about. Heading to bed here. Gotta go home 10 p.m. yesterday. What was episode 4? Okay. Well, I'm probably gonna be wrapping up here shortly. I need to eat something. I'm starting to kind of feel funny. But so yeah, I will see you tonight at 1 a.m. when you go when you're walking to work. Get some rest. Thank you for hanging out. Um, but yeah, I think that and that kind of is damn 14 hours of overtime. That's good though. I know that's rough, but that's good. Okay, yeah, definitely get some rest. And you'll be going in at the same time, right? For you start at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So same time, 1 a.m. Okay. So yeah, that I mean that actually brings up a really good that kind of is, very it's I don't feel like it is an off-topic thing because she was having a panic attack. You realized that she needed help. And so you called somebody that, you know, at least in at some point in time in the past has helped her. Well, yes, they may not be friends anymore. You knew she had knowledge that you didn't. So you did the right thing. At least I personally think so. Hopefully she was able to help. All right, sounds good. Get some rest, and I'll see you in a couple hours. Um, I feel that you did the right thing, and that is actually, like I said, that is totally related because you realized there was a problem. You didn't know how to help fix it, so you tried to ask somebody that you thought could. And that is the same thing. It's obviously not the same situation, but there's the same idea there is that like in the situation I was in is that person instead of trying to force what they thought was going on, they should have asked for somebody else. Like if you are, like if for a security guard, if they see someone's panicking and whatnot, they don't know how to help the situation, they call for somebody who should be able to help. Surely there is somebody on staff, even if it's the nurse, because the thing is, the nurse, any nurses on staff should, if they don't have training for that, then there's a real problem. But they have training for that. They have ways that they can help with that. So even if it's calling the nurse, but you did exactly I felt was right, was that you called somebody that you thought could help because they knew in the past. You didn't feel you had the resources to help them. So the way you helped them was to find somebody you knew who could. And that is exactly a point that I'm trying to make here is that um if you're in a position where you're dealing with people, any kind of guest relations, and especially if you are in security, try to have a basic understanding of panic attacks. And if you feel that you don't know how to help or you can't help, make sure you call for help. Because like I said, even if it's a nurse. So that was the whole that's the big point actually that I was kind of trying to make was that um it is that try to educate yourself. um I understand, sometimes you don't want to put it because you just want to get the paycheck and whatever, but don't look at it as, your job sucks and you just want your paycheck. Look at it as being a decent human being. And I'm not saying that you have to understand everything about panic attacks, but just try to understand how to, at least some signs of it, or if you're not sure, make sure you know who to call. Because surely there is somebody on staff who should have this training. And if there is nobody on staff, and like I said, it may be the nurse. Um, but just try to have some basic understanding, because like I said, there was things that did give a very clear indication. When I said I needed to be with my mother, there should have been better questioning. Somebody else should have been asked for, instead of him deciding that that wasn't going to happen, and I was making a scene and I needed to be escorted out. And again, the fact that he made a stipulation about me needing medical attention was completely uncalled for and not acceptable. So that's what I wanted to come on here. And I just wanted to inform people that, what I had said before wasn't as true as I had hoped it was. But there is, in fact, conventions who do have, and other places too, like Disney and Universal and all their theme parks, they do have programs and systems in place for, people to help deal with these situations. Um, and if you're in, if you help run an event, or somebody who runs events or something like that, where these situations could come up, try to encourage that person, or try to evaluate ways that you can maybe figure out how to help make sure that that doesn't become a problem. And that was just kind of what I wanted to come on here and talk about. It's just, try to figure out your resources. If you are somebody who, you deal with a lot of panic attacks, or, anxiety or something, try to figure out your resources. And even if they don't have something set up for a resource, but you are concerned that this might lead to a trigger, you just keep asking for somebody until somebody can give you some kind of answer. And then, if you are if you're somebody in security, or, crowd management or something, try to get a basic understanding. And I mean, honestly, everybody, I feel like, should have some kind of basic understanding of what panic attacks are. I'm not saying that you have to know everything about them. I'm not saying that you have to know how to diffuse them. If you want to try to learn, great. At least some key things, great. But try to at least have a basic understanding of some things that are clear indications. And remember, every panic attack is different. Hyperventilating is not the only thing that occurs during a panic attack. Sometimes it doesn't even occur during a panic attack. Panic attacks are unpredictable, but there are certain things that you can kind of register. And if you're not sure, again, ask for help, call for backup. But don't just, assume that you know how to handle it, because honestly, if my mom hadn't been close enough and been able to find the head of security, that could have escalated way worse, because that guy was about to actually grab me and escort me out, and that would have gone so badly. Because at that point in time, I was in fight or flight, and I probably would have started throwing punches. So, if you are part of a security team, I understand it's paycheck. I understand that, you may not want to invest that much into your job, but you are signing up to help protect people. So don't look at it as from your job sex perspective. Look at it as being a human being, and making sure that people are, you know, because put yourself in that position. If you were in that position, how would you want to be treated? That's something that I feel like that's, would while if you may not be able to help them, find somebody who can. But try to be at least somewhat educated on some indication, some signs of a panic attack. If you're not sure, call for backup. If you don't know how to handle, call for backup. And if somebody asks for a nurse, yes, I know you usually have to confirm, are you sure you want a nurse? And they say yes, but don't tell them they can't proceed with their convention if they want medical attention. That's unacceptable. So that was kind of, because if a nurse should always be able to know how to handle any kind of panic attack. Um, and if you're in again, even if you're not sure if it's panic attack, the nurse would be able to help assess it and know how to handle it and whatnot. But that's what I wanted to come on here and talk about, was just that, you know, if you are somebody who has it, try to figure out your resources. And if that people need to be understanding of panic attacks. They're not controllable. They are quick, they're fast, and telling them to calm down and threatening them is only going to make things worse. So just try to have an understand. I highly recommend, highly, highly, highly recommend. If you don't have any understanding of panic attacks, just read over some basic knowledge. Or if you know anybody who has panic attacks, ask them a little bit about it. Because most people, I mean, I can't say anything for everybody, but a lot of people when who deal with panic attacks, they don't have a problem explaining, yeah, these are some of my triggers. This is what might happen, whatever. And like I said, every time it's different. I've had a lot of panic attacks throughout my life, and sometimes there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences too. So that was what I wanted to come on here and talk about, was just as a human being, especially if you have signed up for a job to help protect people. That means that if somebody is having a panic attack, they are unsafe because you never know what might end up happening. But the point is, ultimately, they feel unsafe. And you have signed up to help protect the safety of others. If you feel that you cannot handle it, you call for help. And if you are higher in management and security, I really feel that you need to be educated on these things. And again, you call for help from the aspect of you call the nurse if you're not sure. So that was my big thing, was I just wanted people to be understanding panic attacks can come on very quickly. They are not just hyperventilating, they are unpredictable, uncontrollable, and what is occurring is the brain is registering that there is a dangerous, life-threatening situation, and logic is not there. So the best thing you can do is try to assure that person that they are safe, and if you can't do that, find somebody who can help. So that was kind of all I had for today. Um, I do Mental Health Monday. I try to do it as often as I can, but I do Mental Health Monday more and I do other topics. I felt that this one was an extremely important one since yesterday, literally yesterday, and I wanted to do it while it was still fresh in my head too. Yesterday I had dealt with this issue, and I wanted to inform people of the issue, and I wanted to really advocate for people who have any kind of job like that, or know anyone who has some kind of job like that, to try to be understanding. And you know if you, like I said, if you run like a convention, or you know somebody who helps run a convention or something like that, think about these things and try to come up with, possible combinations and help for that. Because that was a problem with this convention. They didn't even think about it. It was not even something that they even had put any kind of consideration for. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I just thought it was really important. I strongly advocate for everybody to have at least some kind of understanding of what panic attacks are, because they can occur anytime, to anyone. And so, I mean, you could just be talking to somebody, and, maybe something you say by accident ends up triggering a panic attack. I'm not saying that you have to have the answers of how to fix it, but just try to have an understanding of what a panic attack is. And if you want to try to have an understanding of how to fix it, especially like if you do have a job like insecurity, um I very much recommend it. But I highly, 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 highly recommend people have a basic understanding of panic attacks, because they can happen anytime with anyone. And learn either to know how to help manage it possibly, or know when to ask for help immediately. But don't sit there and try to threaten somebody, because that's just going to make things worse. So, yeah, that's it. Um like I said, I do Mental Health Monday as often as I can. We talk about different topics. This was a topic I felt that was really, really important, especially since I did give misinformation back in October, because I thought other conventions, because at that point in time, other conventions were set up with these, to be able to know how to help these situations. So I wanted to inform people that the previous information I had given wasn't as accurate as I had hoped. Um, it is still accurate. There is still some, there definitely is conventions that do have that help. And I just really, really, really wanted to drive the importance of trying to understand. And that's one of the reasons why I do Mental Health Monday, was is to try to help people understand mental health. Either, for maybe there's a tip or, just an understanding of what they're going through, or, somebody that they know. Even if it's just a stranger that they meet, for a minute in a coffee shop or whatever. Um, Not enough mental health is not talked about enough, and not enough good information is put out, because you get information that is put out and it's too generalized. It's not really talked about well enough or thoroughly enough, and so people have these misconceptions. For example, biggest misconception about panic attacks is, oh, you always hyperventilate. If you're not hyperventilating, you're not having a panic attack. Panic attacks are different. All panic attacks are different. Everybody is different. So that's yeah. So that was the thing I wanted to talk about today. I don't know what our next Mental Health Monday topic is. Actually, I think I do. I'm last suggested a topic about Mental Health Monday, and so I do want to talk about his suggestion. It's a really good one. It talks about it has have to do with people who don't have children, and how they, you know, how other things in their life are kind of symbolic to children for them, and there's reasons and whatnot. So that's something we can get into a different day. I really like the idea of that topic. This topic I felt was extremely important because of what happened was such a really impactful thing, and I wanted to say it because it was literally yesterday. I wanted to say it when it was fresh in my head, and I feel very strongly about it because it really has impacted me much. So I really wanted to try to get it out there for people to know and understand, and maybe at least one person, even if it's just one person, understands that, they should try to have a better understanding of panic attacks. So if you know somebody who has a job like that, even if you have a job like that, or somebody has a job like that, encourage them to have at least some kind of basic understanding, because it is important to the safety of everyone. So, yeah. Anyway, I will be back on for something, probably some kind of game at 1 a.m. Pacific time. I'll also be on tomorrow about 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, probably from Sir Embroidery, because I have a cosplay that I'm working on. So definitely come check that out. That will be a fun one. I gotta draw it up tonight. But yeah, so Birdie stream tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. So same time frame as right now. But 1 a.m. probably do some gaming. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys on the next stream. And I hope you guys have a great day or night wherever you are.